Hello, everybody. My name is Ana Rezende, and in this podcast, I will share my transformational journey to become a health coach. In each episode, I will address a different subject that impacts our health, whether physically, mentally, emotionally, or spiritually. Because I've learned that being healthy means being in balance. If you would like to make amazing discoveries, improve your health, get inspired, and yet find sustainable ways to live and help the planet, tune in. You are in the right place. I'm your host, Ana Rezende, and Good is What Makes You Feel Well is Mama Terra's podcast.
Toma banho de cachoeira, abraça uma pessoa amiga, corre na chuva, escala a montanha, contempla a vista, transcende, levita.
In today's episode, I am talking to a fellow Awakenpedia partner, Brian Plachta, attorney turned author, spiritual mentor, and teacher. Brian holds a master's degree in Pastoral Counseling and is a certified spiritual director. After taking a spiritual gifts inventory in his 30s, he discovered God was inviting him to a life of writing, teaching, and mentoring others on the spiritual path. For several years, he retired from his job as an attorney at the law firm he has established, so he could follow the call to serve others in new, life-giving ways. Brian's most recent book is Finding Flow, Spiritual Practices to Reclaim Inner Peace, Balance, and Wholeness. His upcoming book, Discovering the Power of Divine Flow, The Contemplative Path to Direct Experience with God, will be published next year. In our conversation, Brian shares how he slowly shifted his life to the spiritual path and some of the main tools he uses and teaches. Brian will facilitate a guided meditation during the next Awakenpedia Freedom from Anxiety virtual retreat on September 28th at 6:15 a.m. One excellent opportunity to experience his guided meditations. Please welcome Brian Plachta. Hello, Brian.
Hey, Anna. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you too. Welcome to Good is What Makes You Feel Well.
I love that topic.
Yeah, that's a cool name, isn't it?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yeah. So for us to start our conversation, I would like to ask you, what in this moment of your life makes you feel well?
Yeah. In this moment, I guess the big phrase, and I can break that down, would be that when I feel a sense of experiencing that integration of mind, body, and spirit or soul. Life is so complicated for all of us, and it gets so crazy. For me, that's kind of the litmus test. I check in with myself. Is my mind, is my body, is my soul, my spirit, are they connected? Am I doing the inner work? And when I connect with those pieces, that's when I feel happy. Yeah. To break it down for me, I think it takes a lot of inner work. That's what I've learned over the years. It doesn't just happen, as I'm sure you teach, and I love your website and the things that you teach on wholeness. But the mind for me, that piece is when I feel happy, is when I begin my day with daily meditation. It quiets the mind, the monkey mind that we all experience. It's a place where I'm able to, I've been meditating about 30 years now every day. It's a place where I connect with God, my higher power, who I choose to call God. It's developed where there's this inner conversation. It's not an audible conversation, but I can bring problems or struggles or just gratitude into that space. And so that's a real beginning place for the day. But also in terms of my mind throughout the day, learning different practices to recognize when those negative thoughts start bombarding us, as they always do. whether it's through the news or through my own self-doubt or the experiences, just being able to learn, like, for example, lately I've been working on a loving kindness practice. Actually going on a 10-day retreat, Buddhist retreat, actually. I'm Christian, Catholic Christian, but I love learning from all traditions. And so the loving kindness will teach us certainly during meditation, but also during the day, just to put a smile on your face, which I guess it releases the calming endorphins in our brain. So physically it helps us, but it also centers us. And then, just thinking positive thoughts. May I be happy. May I be peaceful. May I be kind. When I find myself reacting negatively to myself or other people, offering that loving kindness to other people, recognizing when I'm judging other people and catching myself. I don't do it perfectly. It's a lifelong work in process, but those are the mind things. I think body for me is exercise, daily exercise. As I get older, I recognize I can't do all the things I used to. I'm 65 now. I used to run, but my knee tells me I can't do that anymore. So I do the elliptical and work out with a buddy of mine and lift some weights. Nutrition is part of that body experience too. Certainly, as your forte is teaching proper nutrition, which to me is my hardest part because as I get older, my body has slowed down and I have to be more careful about what I eat. And then spirit and soul. Yeah, recognizing for me, having been raised in a wonderful religious tradition that I still practice, but I saw things through that intellectual lens, like trying to, through dogma and rules. As through my spiritual teachers have learned, it's more experiencing God or the divine or the source, the universe, through that heart space of love. So for me, what makes me happy is my family, watching my wife enjoy life, watching my kids grow and have grandkids, but also in the hard times, I mean, not to say that it's all lily, but recognizing love when it is there fear that either I or others are acting out of in my family, and how do we shift that through conversation, through caring for each other into love. Yeah, the other is I love to write. That's another part of my spiritual practice. I love to write, and when I sit down, I'm working on a new book. I had previously a couple of years ago wrote Finding Flow: Spiritual Practices Reclaim Inner Peace, Balance, and Wholeness. And I'm working on a sequel to that calling Discovering the Power of Divine Flow, the Contemplative Path to Experiencing God as we understand, the Creator. And when I'm writing that, there is just this sense of there's someone writing it in and through me. And when I get stuck, I love to go, okay, divine muse, what do you want to say through me? And when that connection takes place, it happened this morning when I was writing one of the chapters I'm working on. It's like, yes, there is something divine, something beyond us that we can connect with. That's wonderful. And then the last part of that spiritual piece is mentoring others. When I sit with the spiritual direction clients, just had one the other morning, and the Zoom screen goes on, or they come to my house to meet, and this one guy was just in a very despondent mood. Just life is overwhelming, kids, family. By sitting there and just asking questions and actually asking the creator, what should I say to this person? What question can I offer? And to see where they begin to connect with their own inner self as they understand it. It's like I get done with one of those sessions and I go, yes, this is real. There is something, creator, a divine force that is able, when we tap into it, to generate. So yeah, those are the mind, body, spirit, soul things that bring me happiness. Yeah. And like I said, it's a lifelong process. I used to think 30 years ago when I first started deeper on the contemplative path, I thought maybe we would arrive, at some point. And as I've learned, maybe Jesus and Buddha and some of the other spiritual giants, Thich Nhat Hanh, maybe they reached that enlightenment stage. But for most of us, myself certainly, it's a lifelong inner process. That's why they call it practice. And so, yeah, does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. And I love it. I love it. And I resonate with that because I just fell in love with writing. And I just finished my first book, the first draft. Now I'm editing.
Wow.
And I have already an idea for a second one.
Wow.
So I have been experiencing the flow state you talk about,
Exactly. Yeah.
and it is wonderful.
Yeah.
It is wonderful.
What's the name of the working title of the book
The
that
book
you're?
is Living My Best Life in College,
Ooh.
because I'm writing for young adults moving
Ooh.
out from their parents, teaching them holistically how to take care of themselves in all
Mhm.
aspects. So to
Yeah.
have the mind, body, soul connection that we are talking about.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
talking about values and setting goals and how to manage stress, how to eat well, sleep well, and do all the things.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, I'm really passionate about this age because that is the age that I'm experiencing with my kids.
Mm.
And I think it's going to be really
Yeah.
helpful.
Yeah. And good for you. It's, as I get older, I recognize, as we learn, as you are, through experience, through reading, there is that responsibility to pass it on what we've learned to the next generation through reading or teaching or mentoring. There is that sense of, the wisdom that we've learned through life experiences, passing that on as opposed to just keeping it all inside. And certainly the next generation behind us. I've got 4 kids and 10 grandkids myself. How do you, as you're doing certainly through your book, how do you in an age appropriate way offer or invite them to find that mind body spirit connection in their own pathway, that works for them? Yeah.
Yeah, it's been a beautiful journey for me. Yeah.
Very,
So you said you were raised Catholic, right?
yeah.
But you do sympathize with all the other paths and
Yeah.
religions.
Yeah. So one of my models for more of a universal spirituality is Thomas Merton. I love reading. He was a Catholic. Well, he actually lived a kind of crazy life for readers that or our listeners that don't know. He lived a really crazy life. I mean, and did a lot of naughty things, as we all have in our lives. And so that, but he has this awakening. Long story short, he becomes a monk at the Abbey Gethsemane, and he realizes that the goal in life is to stay with our tradition, that we've learned if it works for us, but that we can go out and study other traditions, not to convert them or to change them or to change ourselves, but to learn and integrate that. And so, Thomas Merton met with the Dalai Lama and they became best of friends. And Merton brought the contemplative path through his Eastern reading and writings. He brought that into his monastery, but then certainly into the world. So Merton really, back in my early age 30s, opened up a whole new world that it's not about you have to get into my country club to be happy or to find eternal life or whatever it is. It's about that there are universal truths that we can discover. We might use different language, but in essence, if we can stop and say, we're all pointing to the same universal truth, then we can begin to have a dialogue. We can begin to help each other grow. So when I write, I'm certainly going to come from my tradition, but I also try to find language that includes all traditions. And like I said, I'm going on a Buddhist, I'm studying this loving kindness meditation called Tranquil Wisdom insight meditation through a monk, Bante, that previously died just last year. One of my spiritual coaches has gone on a 10-day retreat on the loving kindness Buddhist retreat. And I'm scared to death to go on it because we're going to meditate, I guess, for first an hour, then 2, then maybe 3 hours. And I'm like, oh boy, what do you do? I might have to go to the bathroom in the middle of that. But I'm excited at the same time because I know by making myself vulnerable to new experiences, new truths, new universal pathways, that I can, like Merton, bring them back to help me grow individually, but also to walk alongside others on their paths, whatever that path is. And, there's a term I've seen is interspirituality, that some would believe, and I believe that there is a deeper level of consciousness that we're moving toward. So instead of saying there's a one size fits all, that you got to, follow this path to get there, it's more of a collective opening of our consciousness to realize that in essence, love is the answer. I mean, love
Absolutely.
is exactly everything can be broken down to, am I experiencing love? Am I living a life of love? Is my life emanating love? Or am I living the opposite, which is fear and hate and all the other junk that just gets us thrown away? So yeah, I love to explore other traditions. Merton's my go-to guide that I guess in essence, maybe I could say gave me permission to be able to explore. Yeah, it was funny because as I began that path, my wife looked at me and says, "Are you going to change your faith tradition?" And then I said, "No, I'm not leaving my tradition. I just want to learn more.
Yeah.
So I can be more whole as an individual, but also as a teacher, a mentor, as a writer." Yeah, does that make sense?
Yeah, of course, because they are just different perspectives.
Yeah, yeah,
The truth is just one,
yeah,
and there are different paths to the top of the mountain,
yeah,
but the top is the same for everybody. But everybody will have a different way to get there and a different thing that it's gonna turn their switch,
yeah.
right?
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
it might be different holistic practices, it might be different traditions or religions. There are so many ways,
Yeah,
but
yeah. And we
all
can
of
learn.
them lead to the same place.
Exactly. Yeah. And we
And
can
that
learn.
is right here inside
Yeah.
us,
Yeah.
right?
So true.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. I love the phrase, in the Christian tradition, the kingdom of God is within us. It's like, wow, to think about that. Like for all of us, whatever we call, that spirit of love, that divine source, it's within us. It's like it's certainly like an eye-opening awakening to that, but there's also responsibility that
Oh,
comes with
yeah.
it. Wow, if I, am the spirit of love made, in human form, the essence of love in our own unique form, one to embrace that, to let go of that self-doubt, the stuff that, many of our traditions unfortunately have taught us and are changing, which is good, but also that responsibility of, oh yeah, I need to live this out with my unique talents and gifts. One of the things that was really important to me and continues to be was discovering my spiritual gifts. I had no idea what spiritual gifts were or what my unique talents. Yeah, we take personality tests, and those are all good. But in age 30, I was a lawyer. I practiced for over 30 years, raising my wife and my kids. But I felt that there was a second career in me. I didn't know it was, and I knew I had to kind of prep for that. There were a couple of books I read, one called Falling Upward and the other is Halftime. And I knew there was something down the road. And I took the spiritual gifts inventory and I discovered I'm a writer, I'm a teacher, I'm an encourager, I'm an administrator. It actually became a beautiful template for, oh, this is how I'm wired. And then I could look at how I was currently using that in my career as a lawyer, my temp making career to put food on the table for my family and educate my kids, but also realizing I needed to begin to retool for the second half of life by becoming a spiritual director, by getting a master's in pastoral counseling, and slowly moved using those spiritual gifts as kind of an inner compass. So, one of those things that for me, those are the tools that I think are so important for us. So, on my website, brianplachta.com, under free resources, there's a whole bunch of free resources, one of which is that spiritual gifts inventory that
Mm.
people can take for free that helps us all. This is how I'm wired. It affirms maybe what we're already doing, but it also cements this is how the divine creator has created you and me in our own image and likeness, basically. So, yeah, discovering our spiritual gifts. And interestingly, as you're working with younger people, I actually gave that to my kids. I had my kids take it.
And
And
how did it go?
that they a lot of the things they already knew about themselves, but it kind of was like the light bulb went on in their minds, like, oh, that's why I love to do this or love to do that. My daughter, for example, made a discernment after taking it. She was going to be a nurse, but then she realized nutrition was her forte, and she became a licensed dietitian. Just so I think it can help us discern a pathway because when we're using our spiritual gifts, as you say, it brings us alive. It makes us happy because we're giving, we're using those gifts, but we also receive basically. So yeah, discovering
Yeah.
that, particularly for the younger, not only all of us in whatever age, but spiritual gifts inventory for our younger generation. I mean, I wish I would have known at age 20 what I
Me too.
at age 65 have learned. And I guess that's just the journey.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's so much that we can learn, I think, if we're open to it at a younger age and pass it on to them.
Yeah. And that is exactly my point. Like you, I had another career, and the time has come for me to have my awakening and find my spiritual gifts, as you
Yeah.
said. And I'm really glad it happened even at the age of 50.
Yeah.
Now I'm living my best life. I'm just doing everything that brings me joy.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, so how can we teach them those points earlier in life? I think I would have benefited from this type of guidance when I was young.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
journey was perfect. Everything was a preparation for this moment. But why not give them the resources earlier in time,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
If they are ready, it might work. If they are not, it will be there.
Yeah.
The seed will be there
Right.
to blossom whenever the time
Yeah.
comes, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Everybody evolves, transforms at their own pace. And I think one of the things, first of all, I loved on your website that wellness quiz that you have. I actually took it, and I love those tools like that. That seems to me, intellectually, that's wonderful. It's intellectual, it's good to study and, in finding flow and this divine flow that I'm talking about. I talk about that there's 4 spiritual practices that we can incorporate as kind of a toolbox as I look at all of the different traditions, all the great spiritual wisdom teachers, both past, present, and current. They spent time in solitude. I call it quiet time is the first piece, getting away from the noise of the world, putting down social media, sitting in the quiet to reconnect with our inner self and the divine, however we experience, source, God, the universe, but having that time to just walk away from the world for 20 minutes a day, 30 minutes. I'm up to an hour a day that I just love the first part of the day. So that quiet time, getting away from the world. Other is spiritual reading, reading the books and of other people on the journey, such as yourself, the book that you're writing and the books that I'm writing, along with scriptures from all traditions that give us wisdom, that say, oh, I never thought about this. And that spiritual reading, the second piece, also gives us something to chew on throughout the day. I find for me, if I'm reading a book, I'm thinking about it. It's just kind of integrating itself throughout the day instead of thinking about all the negative thing. Oh, this is happening, and look at the news and look at that. So quiet time, spiritual reading, and then community, surrounding ourselves with a group of people that inspire us to grow. Could be a spiritual mentor, certainly our families, our parents, our loved ones, could be our faith tradition, our church, coaching, such as you do, and spiritual mentoring like I do, but and spiritual friends, people that nudge us to grow. But it also includes one of the free resources on my website. I got my dog Bailey here who's joining us. One of the free resources on that community piece on my website is who's in your inner circle of trust. And it's a way of looking at who is in my circle of trust, in my community, who's missing, but also an important question. Who do I need perhaps to gently move out of my circle of trust? I've let them in too much, but maybe they're a naysayer, they're a negative person, they're encouraging me to do things that are not life-giving for me. So that community piece is so important, and there's a tool on there. And then finally, spiritual gifts, as we talked about, discovering our spiritual gifts, taking a spiritual gifts inventory to discover how we're wired naturally, and then determining in this season of our life, how am I invited to use those gifts? So I call it QSCS, quiet time, spiritual reading, community, and spiritual gifts. It's just
I love it.
yeah, and it's part of this whole concept of flow, of divine flow that adds not just the psychological, but the spiritual mind, body, spirit piece to it. So
Yeah.
yeah, to me, I just feel like you. I feel that in this book that I'm writing, A Divine Flow, The Power of the Contemplative Pathway, again, is something it's like it shouldn't be this hard. This I grew up again in a very loving Christian tradition, and I love my tradition, appreciate my parents, but they just taught me an intellectual way, and that's good. It set a foundation, but at some point I realized that wasn't enough. I kind of came to the end of trying to think my way to this wholeness, and I wanted to learn to experience it. And that's where, through the contemplative path, fortunately, lots of good teachers in my life, good Dominican sisters who at the Dominican Center here in Grand Rapids, where I live, taught me about the contemplative path, where the divine becomes a relationship, not dogma. It becomes someone I can lean to, something, someone, however we experience that, some being that
Support.
support, yeah, that guides us in our lives. So anyway, yeah, it's kind of a template, but but
I really love that. I think the change is when we understand God or universe as love.
yeah,
Some see God as punitive.
yeah, that is so true. Yeah, I think the old school religion was about we're bad people and we got to earn God's favor. And slowly, as I've grown, and the new teachings, many of our faith traditions, they've taken God out of a box, as I call it, of this, God's going to beat the crap out of us if we don't do it right. It's like, that's not the God of love. That is not
No.
who this source is. And once we begin to recognize that, like you say, once we recognize that the source of everything is love and that we are love and we're evolving into learning how to love, the journey becomes like, I often think of it like Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz. Here she is in Kansas in this black and white world of this is, for me, it was God in a box, perhaps, which is good stuff, good foundation. But all of a sudden, it doesn't work. There's the tornado, the twister, and we land in, the land of Oz, the Munchkins, and the Munchkins say, all of a sudden it's Technicolor and it's how do I get home again? And it's follow the yellow brick road. And to me, that's what the divine flow is, or whatever pathway of love that we discover, the template to how do I open myself up to discovering, letting go of some of the truths that I was taught that aren't really true, and embracing the new ones. Like for me, one of the amazing ones is not, and I'm going to step on some toes with that, but not original sin. It's original blessing. We are the original blessing of God. And boy, for me, that just, as I slowly integrated that, it took away all that self-doubt that, oh, I'm a bad person. It's like, wow, each one of us is the original blessing of God's love. It's like, wow.
Yeah. It
Yeah.
is a wow. It is a
Yeah.
wow. So let me ask you this. Have you had the chance to raise your kids with this Neil Brian or
Well, I'll use a simple phrase. St. Francis says, preach always, when necessary, use words. So I think I've tried to live it. And not that I've done it perfectly, but again, we raised our kids with a tradition. We stuck with our Catholic tradition. But I also was able to, my kids are now, my oldest is 40, my youngest is 32. So, they're beyond, but as they were young, I wanted to instill in them the importance of that there is a God, a divine power. So one of the things was we're going to go to church on a weekly basis, not because you have to do it. And of course, not that they wanted to always go, but because I tried to instill, why are we doing this? We're doing this because we're grateful for the things that we've been given our lives, food, shelter, our dogs, our pets, so we're going to publicly express our gratitude. In our tradition, Eucharist is huge importance. So we're going to receive, almost like Pac-Man, we're going to receive that holy energy that we need to empower us. So I try to, just instill the reasoning behind what we do, but also showing them my own struggles, not hiding that there's certain things that I struggled with that, when churches pay and obey, I struggled with that. And so, and also showing them my own warts, at times when I struggled with my own defects of character. I didn't hide them from them, but I always tried to show them, here's how God is helping me work through them, going into a 12-step program when alcohol became a problem as a full-time lawyer raising a family in my life, showing to them, yep, I needed help. I needed to enter into a 12-step program. So letting them, trying to live it and not shove it down their throats, if that makes sense.
It makes total sense.
Yeah.
I was gonna ask you if you had a moment or a turning point.
Yeah, there were many turning points, I think. My dad died when I was 16 of
Oh,
cancer.
I'm sorry.
And so, yeah. But it's funny how as you grow, you realize, yes, there's the both and of everything, the non-duality of it. It really helped me lean into a higher power. At 16, I didn't have a mentor, a father to, father me per se. So I leaned into looking back, I leaned into that. So that was probably a beginning of an awakening for me, a transform. Some people have these instant moments that everything changes. Mine were more a series of things as I look backwards. So one would be the death of my father. The other would be probably I think I was in my late 20s, mid 20s, where, just working my butt off at work in a high powered law firm, 4 kids, a wife. I never lost my job or my family, but when I drank, I drank to excess basically and did not become a very good person. So that was a moment when I realized, yeah, I kind of taken on the John Wayne persona that my dad had, loving as he was. His generation didn't wear their heart on the shield. So going to a 12-step program, realized, wow, I need to admit my vulnerability, my weakness. The first 3 steps in AA, I'm powerless over life, over alcohol. I lean into a higher power, and through conscious prayer and meditation, I learned the proper wisdom and the steps to follow. So that was a big piece. And then, yeah, I think the other piece was, discovering the contemplative pathway, the spiritual pathway that as I move deeper into, there's got to be more to life than just this God in a box approach. So I think those were the major pieces, certainly other bits and pieces along the way. And then certainly studying, going back to school to get the master's in pastoral counseling, studying the 3-year program to become a certified spiritual director, where we studied all the traditions, which was amazing, St. Ignatius and, Thich Nhat Hanh and Buddha. And so that opened, I think that study, as I moved into a second career, that also shaped and formed me. Yeah.
That is so beautiful.
Yeah.
It's beautiful to have a testimony.
Yeah.
And like you said, you were able to show your vulnerabilities for your kids. And that is really important to share, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So as much as possible, they need to see that we are also human. And we are doing the best we can.
Yeah.
We are always doing the best we can.
Yeah.
Right? Really beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love it.
There was another moment, I forgot about it, probably again in my early 30s. I went to a week-long retreat down in Florida, and I had this compulsion. I don't know why it was. I had this sense that my wife and kids were traveling to my in-laws' cottage, and there's just something that came on inside of me that they were going to get in a car accident and die. It was absolutely out of the blue. It's like, what, and I'm not typically that, fear-based type person. I certainly have fears and stuff like that, but it just was like a compulsion. And so that was probably another huge spiritual awakening in me, driving me crazy. I went into this old abandoned church. This retreat was at an old abandoned Catholic church that was no longer being used by the community. So this group of retreatants had taken it on. And so I go into the church and I had this moment that brings tears to my eye. And I laid down, I saw the crucifix there. And it was a Catholic church. And I laid down and I said, take me, don't take them. And I don't know why. Again, it was what I would call a mystical experience when we experience the presence of God that we can't name it. But I just said, take me, don't take them. And as I began to get up, I looked up, and again, a mystical experience. I saw myself on that cross.
Oh
I was,
my gosh.
yeah, it was like, I'm crying, and I wear contacts, and my eyes are all flooded, kind of cloudy. And then I walked into this room. I was just kind of drawn into this room with a had white light. It was just a meeting room with white light, and everything seemed to change. And I left that room not knowing what was happening. I grabbed my cell phone, called my wife. Are you okay? Are you okay? She says, yeah. What's happened? He said, we're safe at my mom and dad's cottage. And I went back, and it was like, I think it was one of those moments that I needed to just let go of everything, that surrender, not a white flag surrender, but a letting go and offering, saying, okay, there is a mystery to this all. And I went to the retreat leader, and at the end of the week, and explained what happened. And I said, what do I do now? What do I do now to live this contemplative experience? And he says, you go back and live it. Don't teach it, live it. Let it integrate itself into your life. Begin to meditate, particularly the most important piece. He said, go back, and every morning, set your alarm clock for half an hour early. Get up in the morning, get your coffee, your cup of coffee, light a candle. I call it coffee with the creator, having coffee with the creator,
I
and sit,
love that.
have it, and just begin that meditation practice. And ever since then, that meditation has been the lifeblood, I think, of the ups and downs of life that we all go through. It's become the core practice, spiritual practice for me. So yeah, we all have those moments. One of the practices in my Finding Flow book I write about is to go back and look at our lives in decades of 0 to 10, 10 to 20, 20 to 30, and so on, and look at what were those peak moments, those moments when perhaps we did experience the divine, maybe through other people, and also what was missing in those periods, to really do, what were the mile markers, the trail markers in that decade, two or three of them. So as a kid, for me, 0 to 10 was, my parents did a great job. I just loved being a kid. It was, I had a good childhood, basically. 10 to 20, tough times. Dad died, and I leaned, but what was the mile marker? I leaned into God. 20 to 30, I had the addiction problem with alcohol, where I tried to escape the world and all its troubles, through that. But the 12-step program became a mile marker in that period. In the 30s, my age 30 to 40, the experience at the retreat of, just like, they're gonna go, take me, God, take me, not, and then the contemplative lifestyle. So that's another tool I think we can use, and I talk about that in my Finding Flow book, to look at our lives, to the rear view mirror of our lives. We can really see it with deeper wisdom. So that's another practice that I think I've done in my life at times, to look at where's the evidence of where there has been wisdom and guidance in my life, even when things were tough and empty. I imagine you've had those experiences too.
Yeah, because life talks to us all the time. God talks to us all the time. We just have to have ears to listen and eyes to see it, right?
Yeah.
The signs are everywhere.
Yeah. I think of that as you say that. It reminds me of the what's the the book? Doggone, I always forget it. A little kid movie with Robin Williams, the little kids standing in the field at the beginning, and he says the music is all around us. We just have to listen. Autumn Rush, I think it is.
Okay.
Autumn Rush, yeah, little kid. And it's like, yes, you're right. The music, the divine muse, the inner voice of love, which is silent at times, and it's not an audible voice, but yeah, is the Holy Spirit, the divine spirit is always whispering to us. And when we get quiet, over time, we can begin to say, yeah, I have one of my spiritual directors myself. I go monthly to my own spiritual director for the last 30 years. He says that there's three voices in our heads. There is our own intellectual voice, which is a good voice, the mind, but it's also, the mind is trained to differentiate between everything. This is good, this is bad, this is day, this is night. So it gets caught up in that monkey mind and we get confused. So there's the intellectual mind, there's the unholy mind, the unholy one, whatever you want to call it. Sometimes it's just our inner critic. It could be the unholy one, you want to call him in some tradition, the devil, the demon. I just like call him the unholy one. And sometimes I'm the unholy one with all the negative thoughts in my head, or I'm, condemning myself. So the unholy one, always criticizing us, always telling us we're bad, we're naughty. And then there's the voice of love, that inner voice of love, which I choose to call God. And the pathway is to be able to differentiate between those three voices. Am I listening to my intellectual mind, which is good, but it's confusing me? Or am I listening to the unholy one that tells me I can't do this? I'm a horrible person. I can't write this book, and there's no way I can. I'm a bad person. I'm a bad dad. Or see, am I listening to that holy one, or am I listening to the inner voice of love? And that's the pathway, exactly as you're saying, to train our hearts and souls, mind, body, and spirit, to listen to and recognize the inner voice of love, which is always inviting us to our highest good, which is always the voice of love, as you say, never a condemning voice, never because God is love. Yeah. And so wouldn't
Yeah,
God?
we just need to learn to tap into that. That is the secret, I
Yeah.
think. I find myself enjoying more and more my alone time, my quiet time.
Nice.
And meditation has been really a gift for me. It gives me the opportunity to tap to this holy voice inside.
Yeah.
Intuition, God's voice, and our guides, whatever we want to call them. And one thing that I believe it's missing for this generation, they are so digitally connected all the time.
Yeah.
They cannot stand quiet time. So I talk about this in my book because I think it's really important to let them know that they will only know themselves when they find the quiet time to sit with themselves and find their inner truth.
Yeah,
Right?
exactly. Anna, as we're sitting here, an eagle just flew by, which to me, how nature speaks to us, another way the divine speaks to us, eagle being, the sign of
Oh my gosh.
heaven. I just looked up and it's like, oh my, and so again, as we train ourselves to hear that inner voice of love, to experience the world through that lens of love, nature, like that eagle, and you speak about that on your website and some of your blogs. I love that. Nature speaks to us like just an affirmation of, okay, you're on the right path. You're seeking truth. You're seeking wisdom. Keep on doing that.
Yeah.
Native Americans, and I'm going off on a tangent, but the Native Americans had such a respect for nature as a symbol. And nature, they teach us that every animal has a spirit, a unique spirit. And when they surprise us in nature, it's the divine inviting us to emulate that, that spirit. So the ant teaches us, we got to keep working. We got to be resilient. We might be small, but we can carry that bed piece of bread on our backs. The eagle teaching us to continue to see the divine and stuff. But yeah, these phones are such a wonderful thing, but at age 65, I'm the same thing. It's like this thing, I'm always looking at Instagram. And I realize, science teaches us the reason we do that is the mind wants to be entertained all the time. And it's a good thing, but there's another part of us, the heart, the intuition, the spirit. And so for me, I have to, I am not picking up this phone during my quiet time.
Me too. I have clear rules that the 2 first hours of my day, I don't touch my phone. I just put the alarm because I have to set the alarm for my meditation. Otherwise, I'll go over 30 minutes. But that's it.
Yeah.
Because it's addictive. It is and it's such a distraction. Sometimes I catch myself. So I need to check one thing Then when I look, there is a message. Then I go to that message that leads me to another place. And soon enough, I forgot what I had to do.
Exactly.
And
It's a rabbit hole.
it happens all the time.
I hear you.
Can you imagine what it does with those younger minds?
Yeah.
It is crazy. It is really crazy. So as everything else, we need to learn how to use. It's a powerful tool. It's a powerful resource. But again, we need to learn how to use it, right?
Yeah.
We have to have that discipline.
Yeah, that gentle discipline. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. As you mentioned, the ego. There is one Disney animation that is my favorite. That's called Brother Bear. I watched it with my son when he was little, more than 20 years ago. And it was not a blockbuster, never. I don't know why, because for me, it's the best of the best. The story is an old Native American tribe in Canada. And this little Indian boy, the shaman of the tribe, when time comes, she gives each Indian their totem, the little animal.
Yeah, sure.
The older brother gets the eagle, and the little brother gets the bear. And the bear in this movie means love. And the story goes explaining the meaning of love. It is so beautiful.
What's it called again?
So Brother Bear.
Brother Bear. I'll have to do that.
There is 1 and 2. They made a sequel, and the sequel is as good as the first one.
Oh, wow.
So it is so meaningful, and the music is gorgeous. And the final message is love transforms everything. It's exactly what you said. The ancient knowledge from those Native Americans passed on in this beautiful tale.
Yes, it reminds me, one of the things I think that is important, and that through years of study and good spiritual mentors, is developing a philosophy of life. And so when I was doing the Living School with Richard Rohr, 3-year program, we were introduced to Teilhard de Chardin, a Jesuit priest and a scientist. So he combined science and spirituality. And his theory of the universe has been life-giving for me. His theory is that God always has been, always will, a spirit of divine love. And eons ago, the spirit of divine love says, you know what? I want to put my spirit of divine love into matter, into human beings and cats and dogs and plants and animals. So the Big Bang occurs. And divine love is a spark in every single piece of matter that the Creator created. So you and I have the divine spark of love. And our desire, because we are the divine spark of love within us, is to create more love in the world. Getting married, having kids, living a single life, however we, teaching, using our spiritual gifts. So there is this innate desire within us to create more love in the world. And as artists, whatever way we do it. And I love that. And when we're separated from that sense of love, we're not happy. We feel negative, and we can get back to, we can recognize that as a road sign of what's wrong in my life. Why am I not happy right now? Well, I'm not, exercising quiet time. I'm not, connected to my inner self. I'm distracted by the world, 24/7. So we can always get back to that, because it's within us, basically. So I love that theory of everything is divine love, and the spirit of divine love placed divine love into matter, each one of us. And we are, the image and likeness of divine love, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And what's incredible is to recognize that in nature, in us, we have the ego and we have the 3 minds that we were talking about that confuses us. But nature is pure love. Animals, they don't have that ego. So nature is pure love. So that's why I think nature is really healing, and the animals are sacred.
I love that. Yeah, they are our teachers, aren't they? Of love. I mean, I look
They
at.
teach us all the time, and that is the idea behind this movie.
I'm going to watch it. When we
Let me
get done, I'm
know.
going to tell my wife we got to put that on our watch list.
So it was so lovely to talk to you. So
And with
lovely
you,
to connect.
yeah.
For us to wrap up, do you want to give people your contacts and how to reach out to you to get your book
Sure.
and whatnot?
Yep, sure. First, before I do that, we talk about a lot of things. And one of the things I do with spiritual direction clients and my own self is it's like everything is a funnel. We have all this information and conversation, but spirit speaks to us often in a simple word or phrase. And so many times, in a spiritual direction session or in my quiet time, it's like, okay, God, what is it? What word or phrase are you putting within my spiritual toolbox or backpack? And so, if I were to offer to those that are listening one word, I would encourage that meditation. That to me, if everybody in the universe spent 20 minutes or even 10, whatever it is, of quiet time, connecting with their inner self and God and love, that's really what they're connecting with. The world, wouldn't it be transformative? So that would be one simple word I would offer is take the wisdom of my teacher years ago that told me to spend time every day and that you're doing and meditate every day. And yeah, there's ways to avoid the monkey mind. It comes and goes, but yeah, don't worry about that. So yeah, contact information. My website is brianplachta.com, Brian, and my last name, plachta.com. My email is brian@brianplachta.com. Feel free to email me, anyone that's listening. I love to interact with people because it helps me grow too. And I love, sharing the wisdom and me learning wisdom from everybody. Yeah, and then I have, as I said, under my free resources, I have a number of different resources. The community, who's in my circle of trust, the spiritual gifts inventory. There's another thing on teach us how we pray, different pathways to meditation, and then every week I do a free simple wisdom for everyday living blog that I send out now to over 6,000 subscribers and growing, which is really fun. And
Wow.
every week I'm working on a blog. It's a spiritual discipline for me. It's really what's God working on within me. What am I learning? And I try to integrate it. I call it street level spirituality.
Wow.
How do we take the stuff we're learning in life and apply it to what's actually happening in our day-to-day life, at work, around the office, at home, around the kitchen table. So yeah, people can sign up for that, and it goes out every Monday. So yeah, I have a YouTube page, Brian Plachta on YouTube, where I have a bunch of guided meditations, and or there's my Finding Flow
And
book.
those are great. I just absolutely loved the one you did at that retreat.
Oh yeah, the
Yeah,
Awakenpedia.
the morning meditation. It was so good.
Yeah. So on my YouTube, there's a number of under the playlist, there's guided meditations. And so there's some short ones and long ones. If people need a jump start in their meditation practice, it's just a good way to listen to that and then use that to go deeper. So yeah,
Absolutely.
so just thank you for what you're doing, for your
Oh, thank
teaching, for
you.
your wisdom, for reaching out to me. And yeah, we are each other's teachers, each one of us in this universe, including the plants and the animals, as you say, including the eagle that flew by as we were talking.
Yes. All the contacts in the show notes so people can easily find you. So
Sounds good.
thank you so much.
Thank you. God bless. Take care.
Yeah, God bless you.
Thank you guys so much for listening. It means a lot to me that you chose to be here. To help Mama Terra's mission of making the world a disease-free place for generations to come, you can follow the show, write a review, or talk to your friends about it. You can also subscribe to my newsletter. Every week, I craft good health and wellness tips, recipes, and book recommendations with love and care, just for you. My intention is to give you information and resources to help you make good choices and feel well. Find the link to subscribe in the show notes. Follow me on Instagram and Facebook. Thank you again for being here. We have lots of new episodes coming up, so stay tuned. And remember, good is what makes you feel well.
Transcende, levita, toma banho de cachoeira, abraça uma pessoa.